Have you ever wondered what a simple stuffed bear would be able to reveal if it could talk? What if he had witnessed the muffled screams, the teary eyes, and the secrets that no one else knew how to see? This isn't just a toy story. It's about pain, overcoming, invisible scars, and silent love. Each stitch stitched onto this body of cloth carries a memory. And I was there, on the worst days and on the rare smiles. The truth is that, even though I was silent, I saw everything. And maybe now, you're finally ready to hear what she never got to say out loud. She was little when she got me. He squeezed me tight on the first day, as if he already knew he would need me. She carried me everywhere, even on the hottest nights, when sweat ran down her face and her body trembled under the sheet. The room was simple, decorated with dolls and drawings, but the atmosphere changed when someone from the house went up the stairs. I could hear the steps creaking, the sound of the latch being tested, and her flinching before the door even opened. Sometimes it wouldn't open, sometimes yes. I was there, still in her arms, feeling her heart race, and the smell of fear fill the air. It was always at night, always when the house was asleep, and always when she pretended to sleep too. She never talked about it. Not for me, not for anyone else. But she had this habit. She whispered nonsense words while squeezing me, like I'm trying to wake up from a bad dream, or hide a secret so big only Anne. Old Toy could hear it, and I listened. I heard all her silences, and there were many. During the day, everything seemed normal. His father was a man of few words, but he was always around. Rigid, yes, but present. The busy mother was divided between work and household obligations, and there was him, the oldest in the house, who sometimes helped with homework, gave scoldings disguised as advice, and always received praise. He's so responsible, they said, but every time he appeared, she changed. The gaze lowered, the body shrank, and she pressed me as if she was looking for a hiding place. I never really understood. I just felt it. There were days when her father would enter her room without knocking. He said he was going to see if everything was okay. It was supposed to say good night, but she always froze. He remained motionless, as if hoping for the presence to go away quickly. Sometimes it was her brother who called her to talk in the hallway, and she returned alone, with red eyes and uneven breathing. Anyone who saw it from the outside didn't notice anything, but I saw everything. I felt everything. The room, which was supposed to be a safe place, had become a battlefield, and I was the only soldier who couldn't fight for her. She stopped drawing. He put his notebooks aside and began writing short notes, words like, "I can't tell you, they won't believe it, it's not my fault." She folded the papers and hid them between the mattress and the wall. One day, one of these papers fell to the floor, and before anyone saw it, she knelt down and hurriedly tore it up. I cried while I did it, and I, left in the corner of the bed, felt more useless than ever. She was sinking into a dark place, and no one noticed. Conversations at home seemed superficial. Her mother said she was quieter, but she thought it was a phase. The father, when he heard something, mumbled that she was dramatic. The brother, always very busy, always with a beautiful speech on the tip of his tongue. Sometimes he joked about calling her the princess of the house, and she forced a smile. But inside, it was as if the nickname weighed heavily. I felt it when she squeezed me afterwards, and it was always after someone closes the door. One night she grabbed me so hard she ripped my stitching. Blood didn't come out, but memories did. That night, she was shaking like never before. He remained silent for hours, until he whispered in the dark, "If I disappeared, would anyone notice?" My cloth got wet with her tears, and I wanted to disappear with her. I wanted to take her away, but there I stayed, stitched up, motionless, witnessing a pain that not even she knew how to name. Every day she seemed more tired, more empty. But I still went to school. He still had lunch with his family. He still said okay to anyone who asked. No one knew what happened inside that room when the sun went down. Nobody saw what I saw. The way she flinched when she heard footsteps in the hallway. The way she hid her face in the pillow so no one would hear her crying. The marks that weren't physical, but hurt like they were. It was difficult to understand who exactly made her suffer. She was afraid of her brother, that was clear. But he also shrank from his father. She avoided them both, but at different times, in different ways. And that detail made everything seem even more confusing. Because the real aggressor hid in what was familiar. And when pain comes from someone you should love, everything inside you gets confused. The child's mind no longer knows who the villain is. Today I understand. Her silence was the only way to survive. And every night, every tear, every desperate hug I had was a silent plea for salvation. She needed someone, but no one saw, just me. And now that you're here listening to this, maybe you're starting to see it too. Time has a strange way of passing when you live in fear. The days seem fast, almost hurried. But the nights, oh, the nights are endless. And I, motionless in the corner of the bed, saw each one of them crawl away. I saw the girl grow without growing inside. The body changed, the clothes changed, the notebooks gained new materials, but the eyes remained the same, always low, always tired, always as if they were carrying a weight that wasn't theirs. She started putting things away, tickets, pieces of paper torn from old diaries, a few sentences written in a hurry. Others were drawn with such force that the pencil tore the page. Sometimes just scribbles, a blur, an outline of a hand, crossed out hearts. I didn't understand everything I read, but I saw the patterns. Words like guilt, fear, does not speak, hides. Entire sentences like, it was just once but it seems like it never ended and no one would believe me. That hurt, and it wasn't just her. It hurt me too, because I was there. I always have been. And yet, it was as if I had failed too. She hid me again. He pushed me to the back of the closet. Maybe because I knew too much. Maybe because I remembered too much. I spent days there in the dark, listening to the routine happening behind the door. Hurried steps, knocks on her door. Sometimes altered voices. A male one. Another muffled. Then, silence. Always the same silence. And when she caught me again, it was as if she wanted to erase the memory. But she never could. He hugged me for seconds and then threw me back, as if he wanted me to disappear. But at the same time, he hoped I would never leave. One night I heard her talking to herself. It wasn't childish talk. It was an outburst. Something she didn't say to anyone. She whispered angrily, biting her words, and held me with both hands, as if I were the only living being capable of listening to that without judging her. Why did you do that to me? The voice was low but full of pain. I was just a kid. Just a kid. Then silence again. But not the empty silence of before. This one was dense, loaded, warm. I knew in that moment that the truth was beginning to move within her, like a seed breaking beneath the ground, still invisible on the outside, but alive. The house remained the same. The father, always austere. The brother, absent for long periods but present in conversations. He's studying a lot, they said. It's going to be someone important. She just nodded, but her jaw clenched. The body stiffened. Something inside her shattered every time his name was mentioned. But she never said anything, not a word. I just went back to my room, pulled myself tighter and wrote. I always wrote, sometimes in the pen, other times with tears staining the ink. Different designs began to emerge. A man with a shadow bigger than his body. A dark hallway. An open eye drawn several times. And a recurring symbol. A doorknob. Always closed. Always in the corner of the page. As if that was the point of terror she could never erase. There was also a face. Expressionless but with deep-set eyes. It was the same face in several roles. And the most curious thing, always designed with a blue shirt. I recognized that shirt, because both his father and his brother had one like it. In this confusion of visual clues, fear took shape, but not a name. And that was when everything hurt the most, because even for her, the truth was cloudy. She couldn't separate the affection from the abuse, the confidence of dread. What should have been security became a threat. And when the body gets used to danger coming from where love should come from, everything gets confused. She no longer knew who she was afraid of. All I knew was that that room left invisible marks, scars that lived under the pillow, along with your torn notes and interrupted dreams. Some nights she screamed in her sleep, others cried in silence. There were times when I sat on the edge of the bed for hours, staring blankly at the wall, as if he wanted to cross it, as if he wished he wasn't there. One day he said something that chilled me to the core. If I disappeared, they would pretend they didn't notice. And then, maybe it's better this way. It was the first time I felt afraid of losing her. Really lose. Not just for pain, but for absence. To the end. Because she was exhausted. She was only 13 years old, and she was already carrying the world on her shoulders. A world that no one could see. Not even those who shared the roof with her. One Sunday afternoon, someone entered the room without knocking. I heard the sound of the door. She got stuck. He pretended he was sleeping, but I saw her hand tremble, slipping under the pillow. The person was silent for a few seconds. Then he left, closing the door calmly. She lay motionless for hours. Then he got up, picked me up from the floor, looked at me for a while, and whispered, "I know what he did. I just don't know how to tell it." That phrase stuck with me, repeating like an echo in fabric. I know what he did. But who was it? Him? The brother who always called her my little one and smiled as if everything was a joke? Or her father, who never had time but whose nightly visits always left her mute for days? Both? None? That was what consumed me. And maybe, now it's consuming you too. Because sometimes, the worst truths are the ones we don't yet have the courage to say out loud. And that one is still stuck in her chest. She hadn't spoken in days. Not with Mum, not with the mirror, not with me. He sat on the edge of the bed with his hands folded in his lap and just looked at the window. It was like waiting for a response from the world. But the world was silent and cold as her gaze. I watched her from there, from the corner of the room, and I felt that something was about to happen. It was no longer the fear it was before. It was something else, a type of courage that is born from tiredness, like someone who hits rock bottom and decides they don't want to die there. It was on a cloudy late afternoon, when the light from the sky seemed mixed with grey, that she pulled a small box from under the bed. Inside were clippings, notes, old scribbles, and a letter, a yellowed sheet written with a blue pen, where the words seemed to have been ripped out of it. She smoothed the paper, as if preparing her heart for an old wound that was still bleeding. He sat on the floor, placed me on his lap, took a deep breath, and said, in a whisper, Today, I'm going to read it out loud. Her voice shook, the hands too, but she didn't stop. I was 9 years old, and you knocked on the door like it was just another visit. But that night you took everything from me. You said it was just affection. He said it was our secret. And I believed, because you were my brother, because you were the pride of the house. She stopped. He swallowed the tears. He looked at the ceiling, and it continued. I looked at Dad and asked myself, does he know? Can't he see? Sometimes he would hug me and I would freeze, because I no longer knew who the danger was coming from. Because you, who smiled, who said you cared for me, he was the one who destroyed me the most. The pain came out in the form of tears, silent, draining slowly like everything that has been stuck for too long. She clutched the paper to her chest and hugged me with her other hand. I was there. I always have been. But I'd never heard her say it out loud. And at that moment, she wasn't just a hurt girl. It was a girl rebuilding herself piece by piece, even torn, even shaking, even scared. You were my brother, but it was never my family. She said it firmly, with teeth clenched. And at that moment, it was as if the air in the room changed. The silence gave way to a painful but necessary kind of freedom. The truth finally had a name. It had shape. It had an owner. The monster wasn't the father. The monster was the perfect son. The older brother. The one everyone praised. The one everyone said, be like him. And now she knew she no longer needed to protect anyone's image, because protecting the aggressor was continuing to betray one's own pain. She read the letter until the end. He burned the envelope, but he kept the folded sheet inside his diary, as proof, as a shield, like release. In the days that followed, she began to speak, first with the therapist, then with the mother. I no longer cried out of fear, I cried out of relief. He said phrases like, it's not my fault anymore, I was just a child. He knew what he was doing. Each word became a brick in a bridge that she was building back to herself. And even when the house fell silent, because his name was still too heavy to be repeated, she remained standing. The truth had been told, the silence broken. And me. I was the first to hear it, and now you heard it too. The mornings began to take on a different color. The room, which had carried an invisible weight for years, now breathed easier. The curtains let the sun in. The bed was always made. The drawings, previously dark, now had flowers, people smiling, birds moving. And I, the old teddy bear, was returned to the center of the bed. They washed me, sewed my loose arms together, glued my lost eye back on. And I understood at that moment that she was also remaking herself, part by part, carefully, with patience, and above all, with courage. She still had difficult days, and truth. Sometimes he woke up and remained silent for long hours, but her silence was different now. It was no longer suffocated fear. It was reflection. It was a break. It was the body saying, I'm still healing, but I'm here. She started talking to other girls, in groups, in conversation circles. He told his own story, not with shame, but with strength. He once said, looking in the mirror, I am not what they did to me. And for the first time, I believed that she believed it too. The mother cried when she heard the truth. He cried because he hadn't realized it before. She cried for all the times she said, stop the drama, when all her daughter wanted was a sign of acceptance. But now they hugged each other. They cried together. They grew up together. The father, silenced. He lowered his eyes, Perhaps not through direct fault, but through omission. He was the adult. It was the pillar. But his emotional absence built a castle without doors, and she had to escape through the windows, alone. About his brother. He never came back. Not on Sunday lunches, not on Christmas holidays. His name became just a distant whisper, but the memory, that one, still lives on some nights. And even so, she learned to take a deep breath and move on. Because now she knows, the past explains, but does not define. And when you find within yourself the power to move forward, the monster shrinks. She still sleeps with the letter folded inside the drawer, not to feed the pain, but to remember the strength he had when writing it. And me, I'm still there in bed. My hair is no longer the same. My seams betray time. But I'm still the refuge she finds when the longing for what she could have been knocks on the door. And when he hugs me, now in silence, I understand. It's no longer a hug of despair, it's gratitude, because I never left her side for having seen the worst, and yet we stayed to see the best. She transformed, and it didn't happen overnight. It was little by little, with relapses, with fears, with silent days and long nights. But she did it. And do you know why? Because he decided to tell his own story out loud. Because he decided that the trauma would not be the end of him, but the beginning of something new. Perhaps, as you listened to this story, you thought of someone. Or maybe you saw yourself in one of those pieces. And if that happened, I want to tell you something. You can also start over. You can also speak. And if now isn't the time, that's okay. But may this story remain with you as I kept it. And if you felt that this story touched something inside, I want to invite you, subscribe to the channel. This space was made for this, to give a voice to the silence, to transform pain into strength, to remember that even on the darkest days, someone, somewhere, has already gone through something similar and won. Leave the sentence in the comments, I'm also rebuilding myself. Or just one, if you prefer to remain silent. But remember, the simple fact that you are here is already a sign of healing. Her story is not over, and neither does yours.